power, passion, intrigue, and revolution. The Tudors ruled for nearly 118 years, but they transformed England in ways still felt today. They gave us unforgettable monarchs, the tyrannical Henry VIII, Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen. Yet their story began with a secret love affair between a dowager queen and her Welsh servant. I'm historian and author Claire Ridgway, and in this beginner's guide to the Tudors, we'll explore how a family with royal blood and ambitious hearts rose to forge one of England's most extraordinary dynasties. Our story begins not with a king, but with a romance. In the 1420s, Owen Tudor, a handsome Welsh courtier, served Queen Catherine of Valois, the young widow of Henry V and mother of Henry VI. Somewhere between duty and affection, Catherine and Owen married in secret, a daring act that could have cost them everything. From that hidden union came Edmund Tudor, who later married Lady Margaret Beaufort, a descendant of the royal house of Lancaster. Their child, born when Margaret was just 13, was Henry Tudor, the future Henry VII. Fast forward to 1485, England was exhausted after decades of civil war. On the fields near Bosworth, Henry Tudor, the senior Lancastrian claimant, defeated King Richard III, the Yorkist, bringing an end to the Plantagenet dynasty and beginning a new age. To cement his kingship, he married Elizabeth of York, daughter of the late Yorkist king Edward IV, uniting the red and white roses of the houses of Lancaster and York into the Tudor rose, a symbol of peace, legitimacy, and a carefully managed public image. And that's something we'll see again and again. The Tudors were masters of image. Henry VII, who ruled 1485 to 1509, is often remembered as the accountant king. Frugal, serious, obsessed with control. But that image hides a man who was a survivor, an exile who'd spent most of his youth hiding in Brittany, never sure if he'd live to see England again. He built stability through carefully arranged marriages and cautious diplomacy. He repaired the finances shattered by civil war, founded the Court of Star Chamber to strengthen royal justice, and ensured that the monarchy would never again be at the mercy of overmighty nobles. Some call him dull, but Henry VII's quiet strength laid the foundation for everything the Tudors achieved. Without his discipline, there'd have been no Henry VIII's splendour or Elizabeth I's golden age. Now onto a king everyone knows. When Henry VIII came to the throne in 1509, he was the image of promise. A tall, athletic, good-looking and charming 17-year-old, fluent in languages and genuinely devout. His early reign was a celebration of youth and unity. He even earned the title Defender of the Faith from the Pope for condemning Martin Luther's heresy. And then came Anne Boleyn. Henry's desperate need for a surviving male heir, which his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, had sadly been unable to provide, and his fascination with Anne set in motion a revolution. When the Pope refused to annul his first marriage, Henry broke with Rome, creating what would be the Church of England, with himself as its head. Another 4 wives later, the legend of the tyrant king was born. But we often forget that Henry VIII wasn't simply ruled by lust. He believed sincerely that he was doing God's will and that God wanted him to secure the Tudor succession. By his death in 1547, England's faith, government, and even its sense of national destiny had changed forever. At just 9 years old, Henry's son Edward VI inherited a throne that had been turned upside down. Under the guidance of his uncle, the Duke of Somerset, and later the Duke of Northumberland, both Protestants, Edward's reign from 1547 to 1553 introduced sweeping religious reforms. The Book of Common Prayer, English services, and the destruction of Catholic imagery in churches. Edward was a bright, serious boy, more scholar than soldier, but as a boy king, his influence was limited. When he died, aged 15, he left behind a Protestant vision of England and a succession crisis that would tear the realm apart. Fearing that his Catholic half-sister Mary would undo the Protestant reforms of his reign, Edward named his Protestant first cousin once removed, Lady Jane Grey, who was also Northumberland's daughter-in-law, as his heir. Jane, who was about 16, was proclaimed queen, but support for Mary swelled across the country. After just 13 days of Queen Jane, Mary took the throne, riding triumphantly into London as its rightful queen and imprisoning Jane in the Tower. Jane was executed the following February. Mary Tudor's victory restored the rightful line, a succession chosen by her father Henry VIII, and it brought England its first official queen to rule in her own right. Mary restored Catholicism, reunited England with Rome, and married Philip of Spain, a match that proved deeply unpopular. She has been remembered as Bloody Mary for burning Protestants, but that nickname came from later Protestant writers. In reality, Mary was intelligent, principled, and deeply religious, but zealous in her faith, seeing Protestants as a danger to the kingdom and people's souls. Her reign ended in heartbreak. No surviving children, the loss of Calais, and a country divided once again. Yet she paved the way for her half-sister's success, showing that a woman could rule as monarch. When Elizabeth I came to the throne in 1558, she inherited religious division, economic trouble, and a question every man in England wanted answered: would she marry? Elizabeth proved a political genius. She crafted her image carefully, the virgin queen wedded to her people, and she turned her unmarried state into a source of strength. Her reign saw the Elizabethan religious settlement, the real founding of the Church of England as we know it today. She encouraged explorers like Francis Drake and Walter Raleigh, and under her rule England faced and defeated the Spanish Armada in 1588. The arts flourished, with Shakespeare and Marlowe defining an era, a golden age. But behind the triumphs lay constant tension, threats from abroad, plots at home, and the loneliness of power. Elizabeth ruled for over 44 years, dying in 1603, childless, but leaving behind a legend. Beyond the monarchs, Tudor life was vibrant, dangerous, and changing fast. Religion dominated everything. The Reformation wasn't just a theological debate. It affected your prayers, your neighbours, even the food on your plate. Science and exploration were expanding horizons, yet superstition still thrived. People feared witchcraft, believed in portents, and read the stars for guidance. At court, splendour and terror walked hand in hand. One royal favour could make you rich, one whispered rumour could send you to the Tower. And for ordinary people, life meant hard work, community, and faith. The Tudors lived closer to death than we do, but also closer to ritual, beauty, and belief. And now let's tackle a few quick Tudor myths. Henry VIII didn't execute all his wives, only 2 of the 6. I say only, but 2 was quite enough. Elizabeth's virgin queen image was political theatre as much as personal vow. Mary I wasn't a monster. She was a woman trying to heal a broken faith, and she achieved much in her short time as queen. And the Tudors didn't always live in drafty, gloomy castles. By the 1500s, they loved light-filled palaces like Hampton Court, decorated with sumptuous tapestries, paintings, glass in their windows, and music. The reality is richer, more human, and far more interesting than legend. So why do we keep coming back to them? Because the Tudors show us the full range of human experience, ambition and failure, love and betrayal, faith and fear. They lived at the turning point between medieval and modern, when the world was opening up and the old certainties were falling away. They left us not only stories, but evidence, letters, portraits, buildings, even their own words. When we read a letter from Anne Boleyn, read Elizabeth's Tilbury speech, or walk through Hampton Court Palace, the Tudors still speak, vivid, defiant, and alive. And they're larger-than-life iconic kings and queens whose stories read like a soap opera. This has been your beginner's guide to the Tudors, a dynasty that changed England forever. In the next episode of this series, we'll meet the man who started it all, Henry VII, a survivor who built a legacy out of blood and determination. If you're new to my channel, please do subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss out on a new video, and do consider joining my Tudor community as a channel member on YouTube to get access to lots of Tudor goodies. And if you're already part of our Tudor family, thank you for helping welcome new Tudor history lovers. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.